here in just a second. Once again, apologies for that delay with getting things started, but we should be good to rock and roll from this point forward. DarkZero has the 2 outer bands. TSM on the blue team has the 2 inner bands. TSM will be starting on attack. DarkZero on defense. First band's coming up right now for DarkZero as they get to knock out an attacker, and they are going to choose to eliminate Thatcher.
Cannot blame them there. I will be honest, in the back of my head, I was sitting here thinking, is it going to be the Ash band? Will it come through once again up against TSM? And that is not the case. TSM actually going to take away Dokkaebi here, which I really enjoy this band, especially for something like Theme Park. Lots of clear here, and Dokkaebi definitely assists with that.
We've seen Dokkaebi used quite heavily, in my opinion, on this map, so it makes perfect sense to be able to knock her out as she's become a pretty quintessential part of the info game for attacking sides on this map from time to time. Well, mine makes sense. He's been a pretty strong contender, and the same thing can really be said for Valkyrie when it comes to just overall prowess on the defensive side, so those usually make sense to ban out in pretty much any sort of map situation in the current meta.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that with Valkyrie and Wamai, I feel like most defenders right now have just been so very potent with them. Not just their utility either, just those guns have just been blazing the last handful of months. So to be able to take away the MP5 with that 1.5 times scope, as well as the MPX and, the cameras really finding a lot of intel for the defense, that's going to be a really, really big deal. So these bans rolling in here pretty equal as to what's going to be going on in between the offense and defense. We already have a 6 pick coming in. TSM changing up the lineup. Merc not going to be on his quintessential Ash, instead bringing Jackal along for the ride.
We are going to start with the usual beginning site when it comes to Theme Park. The overall rotation for teams and overall sites is a little bit more open, in my opinion, on this map compared to some of the others. Stokes had mentioned teams are still kind of working this map out, even though it's been in the pool for a while here. So as a result of that, sometimes you see differential starts, but this is usually the go-to. This is the throne room. It's very easy to lock down for the defenders, and it's very, very annoying to get any sort of access to for the attackers. It'll be a long process of not just clearing out the area surrounding the immediate site rooms, but also the areas above it, just because you do have to watch out for the top-down clear. We are going to see reinforcement going on to the hatch that would lead down into the site, as well as charging it up as well from the electric wall. So trying to double down on that. There's also going to be additional reinforcements placed upstairs to allow the roam game to continue to maintain control here, hopefully past the normal point where they would be expected to hold it.
Yeah, there's quite a few things to behold here, especially in these first handful of rounds, because the big thing about innovation on siege maps when they do come into the competitive pool, or just really haven't been thought out well just yet, is that defense is usually the first thing to get innovated, mainly because you need to know what the best defensive lineups are in order to obviously work on your offenses. If you don't know what you're walking into, it's very hard to try and make something happen with your offense. So obviously Theme Park's been something that's been worked on for quite some time now. It has a little bit over a year's time inside of the competitive pool. So the big question is are there teams that are now equalizing on this map, or are going to be seeing, offensive rounds be gathered more and more often? We'll have to see how TSM are going to fare here. This Jackal already working out some intel onto Hyper. He's found a camp, and a nice flick to lead us off onto Achieved. The breath has been removed from my lungs and the life from Achieved's entire body.
Hyper just tapping away, it seems, at a couple of those pre-fired angles. He's going to do a little bit of damage to himself on the retreat as he falls back into the depths of Gong there, but the damage has already been done as Achieved has very quickly been knocked out, and Hyper still maintains himself as a player that's very much alive in this late round scenario now, even though it takes a little bit of self-damage on the way back. Great start for DZ. Puts it down to a 5v4. TSM so far not giving themselves the capability to trade that back. We're still early days for this round with a little under half of it to go.
It's very interesting to see that a lot of the fraggers nowadays have been picking up this 1.5 times scope on the roam and just really trying to make some things work. And it just time and time again, it continues to pay off. Another engagement happening here for TSM inside of Drug. They've got a Jackal track inside of here, but it's actually going to be Geo to pick up Mint on the other side of the map. I don't exactly know if they actually handle the man inside of Drug Lab just yet, but DarkZero still have some tidbits here on the roam. Yes, actually, Geo ended up getting the mute through the sidewall from Yellow Stairs. The TSM have cleared out the Drug Lab area as they continue to barrel down onto this yellow wall. Still have some electronics to get rid of that are going to be desperately needed to get these walls open, and they still have to worry about Hyper on this roam inside of Tellers.
And neither of the electric claws have been dealt with, so all walls which were focused on have still been charged up at this point in it here. 20 seconds remaining too.
Wow.
But TSM is picking up kills out of absolutely nowhere, it seems. Hyper and Skies both go down in a split second of each other here. Eclipse and Hot and Cold are the only ones that remain alive here. Hot and Cold's going to try to get aggressive, and it will fail, unfortunately. Merc taking him out as well. Now Eclipse will be able to maintain for at least one in the depths, but he's got to now try and stop the rest of the push here. 1 second remaining. There's the commitment, but Eclipse might still be able to stop this. Never mind. It's Bolo from up on top with the countered angle to secure the round for TSM.
Great stuff here by TSM. Very low time execute, but those 2 kills coming in just the tail end there, really assisting them to actually work their way onto site. Some beautiful shots across the board as well. Both of these teams coming out swinging. You can definitely tell that the Wheaties have been consumed and that there's been some warm-ups done this morning.
Definitely, to be sure here. TSM, a great recovery after a little bit of a bumpy start there, losing a player early on to the hyper roam there, which was a very well-placed shot from him, but unfortunately, they're falling back. Weren't able to see a whole lot. It fell down to the site players after that fact, and a very last-second execute from TSM in order to make their take work. Worked beautifully as well there. Some very quick mid-round kills they had to try and snipe for themselves. Allowed them to get access, and more importantly, allowed them to get that diffuser on the ground as they got that wall open with just a couple seconds to spare.
That was still a very winnable round for DarkZero as well. Even down to Eclipse, he still had some options there to possibly make some plays. Just very unfortunate how things ended up, going down. Hot and Cold with a nice swing from Split as well to try and assist while Merc was attempting to hold down the angle towards the back of Throne. Not a bad idea at all, especially on such a close range engagement. Hot and Cold had the drop on Merc, but he just was not able to win things out with that AUG. Really surprised, actually, that he wasn't able to get that kill, but that's just somehow, sometimes how the cookie crumbles. We'll see how DarkZero able to bring things back. We're headed back to Armory, so obviously they feel as though there's some things to fix. They've also adjusted Hyper over to Melusi instead of the Legion.
Melusi should be a pretty good changeup overall here, just in terms of trying to slow down the pacing when it comes to TSM. Obviously, we're missing that in the previous round. And while, yes, they did have access to the Legion mines, that's only kind of partial interruption of overall movement, whereas the Banshees are going to be a little bit more direct this time around here on the defensive side. So we'll see how that changeup ends up working for DZ. TSM, in the meanwhile, are going to start their push primarily from the cafe side, it looks like here. So we've got both Geo and Merc working their way in. That doesn't mean that there's not anything happening over on Dragon's side either. We do have, I believe, one player near the roof sitting up here. Yep, there you go. Achieved and Chala both working to find entries here. So we're taking both angles as I take a look here. And now Merc, she's going to find himself into a bit of a rough situation, but he almost comes out of it as the winner. As Hyper takes just about as much damage at the same time.
Nice trade in damage, but no kills, and practically the same amount of damage as well. But amazing top clear here by TSM. Just like we were talking about before this round started, or before Theme Park really kicked off. You always want to look for those innovations on offense and what these squads are doing, and TSM have clearly been working on these offenses and these clears. They set up Bolo on the south side windows and start to clear out this entire building so they can try and pinch him out. Wherever the roamer tries to find some safe harbor upstairs, he's more than likely going to run into some gunfire or possibly some intel gathering that TSM has set up. So now they've forced all of these players down to the bottom level. This is where that secondary clear needs to come in, but obviously they can use some verticality to hold down some angles as well as clear some utility.
Let's try to take out the hatch here in order to deal with that. Hot and Cold does have the electric claw already. He might have thrown in a second or two too late, though, so we'll have to see. No, it looks like he got it just in time. The X-Kairos will be denied at the end of the day. Hatch stays closed. More importantly, DarkZero stays secure in the depths of that throne room site. We approach the final minute of the round. Mint's having to play a little bit of a dodge game right now as he is slowly losing all of the vertical real estate, which he previously had control of and really didn't have to worry too much about. Drone work coming in against him here too. So definitely a big focus for TSM right now is dealing with this player on the inside of storage. Unfortunately, the call is not given for Mint's current position, so we are going to see Merc try to run in an attempt to frag him, and it'll pretty quickly get taken down. Still having the player to the inside. The good news is Bolo is able to walk right in, find the trade for that, and even better, Chala pushes the advantage further by one player.
Luckily enough, the job has already been done for these DarkZero roamers. They've delayed all the way down to 30 seconds. Usually a minute and a half is good enough, but they've also gotten Merc for their pleasure as well. Pop the yellow wall, and now it seems like we're going to have a party. TSM surrounds the building, surrounds the site. It's time to force their way in. 10 seconds left. Bolo's on split. Eclipse gets a lead off kill. Achieve to try and refrag, and he'll find it. Down to 2, but now before Bolo removes Eclipse's head, it's a 1v3 for Skies. He needs to try and make some magic happen, but that's hard to do when you got the highlight fragger on your squad. Bolo puts multiple people inside the grave and locks up the second round for TSM. They are looking dynamite in these first 2 rounds.
Bolo stepping up in a big way today, not only helping out back on round number 1 with the mid-round frags to allow his team to work their way into the site, but obviously doing it to a huge extent here in round number 2 as well to finish off the clutch once again with a very, very rough timer working against our attackers here. TSM, 2 amazing rounds going into their favor. DZ's going to have to try and find a way to respond to this quickly. As you mentioned, both of these rounds were very, very winnable by them up until the final seconds.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being
Oh my goodness gracious, John. Do we have a match on our hands today? Let me tell you, TSM, like you were saying, so good inside of these first 2 rounds. And this is that innovation that we were talking about. I'm only going to bring it up one more time. But TSM's offenses are looking so very good. And I have to continue to talk about this simply because this is Theme Park. This map is not easy to attack. Talk to any professional player inside the scene. This map, to be God's honest truth, is terrible for offense. It is so very difficult. There is a lot of angles you have to worry about. Same thing for the defense, but the thing is that the defense gets to recreate the map how they want. So with the new sites that we now have with the 1.5s in, the ACOGs, everything else that the defense has at their disposal, as well as the soft destruction they have, you can set this entire map up to just have so many angles that'll make your head spin. So for TSM to be doing what they're doing right now and forcing DarkZero to go to a different site, this is a very big deal. Simply because how these rounds went, DarkZero did not have bad defenses, folks. They didn't. Again, like what we talked about, they held TSM back up until the last 30 seconds, and TSM still found success. That's something that is not supposed to happen on a map like this, and they're doing it time and time again. So this is very, very impressive by both of these teams. DarkZero stemming the tide up until the very last second, and TSM still able to win out these rounds.
Impressive stuff on the opening 2 here from TSM, definitely lending some credence to why we'd see them pick into this map as the opening one for the series, as of course it is their own map pick. But as we get into the action of round number 3, already about a minute deep or so here, we are seeing Bolo get himself close to another potential engagement if he decides to commit to this at break room. Now that's unlikely to happen given the very low chance he has to win the fight against a Mint, so he end up committing. So yeah, it's not going to be too surprising to see him move away from that after trying to bait out the duel for a few seconds here. End up just rotating to a more efficient position where he can actually make some progress on map controls. Unfortunately, not a whole lot's going to be happening from that rappel, and if he was covering across, more than likely that job was already finished by that point.
Well, still plenty of time for TSM to get this lead off pick, but as we've seen, it's slow and steady wins the race for them. Plenty of drones still spinning outside, as well as most of TSM residing out there as well. Well, except for Bolo, who seems to have found some safe harbor over near the initiation side of things. So have a good clear going on, though, as they're mainly prioritizing the arcade area, trying to find out where multiple members are. Hot and cold with some hot and spicy information, figuring out where multiple TSM members are over near Cafe.
Still seeing a lot of clear work being done. Merc going to try and take a peek down below here with one of the breach charges being used on Ash in order to clear out from Cafe down below. Not much going to be found from it, though. Hot and cold still sitting on the other end of that one. So Merc does need to be very careful about how he approaches any sort of aggressive peaks, because Hot and Cold will more than likely have advanced intel on those. Either way, down to sub 1 minute now. We still have an active horizontal roam. It does appear as though TSM has cleared out most of the second floor pressure, but there's still a lot as we've been panning through these player POVs spread out amongst the initial floor here. So once again, if TSM end up winning this one, it's going to be a surprise for me. Just as I say that, Bolo gets himself onto the board here. First kill of the round, first real bits of damage in the round coming in only at this 30-second mark, but it's once again working out in TSM's favor. Hyper and Mint have both gone down. Barely any damage traded in response. Skies is ready to fend off the push to the inside of the storage window, but is he going to be able to fend it off? He's quickly losing control. 2 more kills coming in from TSM. Now the plant attempt going down onto the ground for Bolo. Can Eclipse stop it? No, he cannot. Merc gets the final kill again, and TSM secure yet another round with a barnstorming execute at low time.
This is just so very impressive. I am flabbergasted as to what is happening right now. This is not supposed to happen on Theme Park. This is my analysis, folks. This is what you get. Like, I mean, TSM with some fantastic map control, working this map so well, but it seems to be the same thing in the last 30 seconds. When that decision comes down to crunch time, they just flood site, and they do it so well. It's all in unison. They're making sure that there's no real thing that DZ can do to them to try and slow this down. Really, the only attempt that DarkZero had to try and shut down that push was all on the back of Skies and the proper M590 swing onto Drug Window, but he looks away for a split second, and all of a sudden Merc's inside and shooting him in the back of the head. Like, there was no decision for TSM. It was all go. As soon as there's an opening, take your opportunity, take your gunfight, and see if you can make things work. And that's exactly how TSM got that done. Some fantastic stuff matched with that vertical play that they had earlier on inside of the round.
Now, at this point in the half, there's not really an excuse anymore for DarkZero to be taken, surprised by these types of plays. In fact, they should be expecting them at this point in the half, in my opinion, given that it's been used for 3 rounds straight here by TSM. The question is, does DarkZero have what they need to properly counter this? Because it's happening so suddenly and so fiercely from TSM. We haven't really seen a proper response yet from DarkZero. A lot of these situations, to be fair, have been hard to spot out on an individual basis because they've been transpiring so quickly, so we'll have to try and pay closer attention on this round and see where exactly the faults are lining up. But either way, DarkZero changing the site again, now moving away from lab and upstairs into the bunks to try and see if they have better luck here.
Well, it all starts in the picks for TSM. They get these lead-off picks as the team goes down. Apparently, I have the blue curse of yesterday, so we'll see if that works out. But it all starts off with these picks for TSM, and then what they do is they translate these into that barnstorming offensive play onto the actual site, like we were talking about. But the main reason is because of these lead-off picks. Obviously, with a situation like that, instead of being a 5-on-5 while you're trying to force yourself into site on a rush, when you have that 5v3 situation, it's exactly that. It's a 5-on-3. You have 5 people versus 3 people, and that's going to be difficult no matter what. We might have Eclipse flying out a window here, but doesn't seem like we're going to have that.
He's
more than likely a
sure.
smarter play here instead, try and keep that utility on deck. But that's really why TSM has been finding this success, is simply because it's a 5-on-3. It's very difficult for DarkZero to try and hold multiple angles and shut down all of TSM's avenues when they have such a low man count in comparison.
Well, coming down to the last half of the round here, shouldn't be too much stressful for the TSM fans out there to see the timer continue to tick down in the way that they've executed on the previous 3 rounds here. The timer doesn't seem to be much of a problem at all for them, to be completely honest with you. But for DarkZero, it's probably scaring the heck out of them, and it's going to be even scarier now that Merc snuck right up arcade stairs and gets the Deagle headshot to finish off Hyper. Going to look to try and take this further, but finally, a bit of a response coming in from DarkZero. If it's only short, though, as Eclipse does end up getting downed a moment after he finds that pick against Achieved, leaving only Mint and Skies alive. And I'm unsure if Eclipse is going to be revivable. Looking like Mint's certainly going to make an attempt. Whether it'll be possible is still yet to be seen.
Well, this is as pressed as we've seen DarkZero in a very long time. Full court, one would say, as it's down to the 1v3, technically speaking, unless they're able to get Chala up. Eclipse still down, but more than likely not recoverable for Mint inside of sight. He has the Alda, and this is definitely the weapon that you want inside of the clutch position, but exactly what is it going to be worth? They get Chala up, but Chala has been eviscerated by said weapon. Still has plenty of places to try and rotate to, but as he continues to spritz away with this weapon, that ammo count gets lower and lower, and even though this thing does have so much, eventually it's going to get empty. That is a 4th plant attempt here. Geo gets 2 after he downed Eclipse and is able to clean up the last frag. TSM, this is just textbook. I don't even know what else to say. These guys, every single time, John, plant attempt, every single time, perfect execute. There is nothing that DarkZero can do to stand up to them right now and try and slow them down. Every single time that they think they have them, they think they have a play, they're playing the proper way to try and slow them down in some capacity. TSM find a different avenue. Merc works his way in, downstairs, up arcade, literally shoots a man in the back of the head, fully walking, no shit, no alt walking, no nothing, just walks his way up the staircase, kills him, starts having a gunfight with a man on site. Rest of TSM's executing through cafeteria. You still have a man on the windows. I mean, you guys have to understand the amount of, different facets that TSM are taking to apply this pressure to DarkZero. This is masterfully done.
Also really respect the discipline, because it is apparent at this point that they're looking to try and set up like kill boxes, it seems, on their site pushes. And slowly just try to squeeze players out of positions, and then because of the fact that they'll more than likely be fighting someone else, they'll end up dying to someone completely different on an off angle because of the way that the kill box would be set up. But you really have to respect their discipline with actually, trying to close the box, so to speak, here. As TSM was kind of in a bit of an awkward spot in that round because of the ulti, but they didn't really overcommit to it. They sat back, they held the angles, despite the fact that they're on attack, and the time is very, very quickly working against them in that situation. They did not mind just sitting on angles, it seemed like, and waiting that out for at least 10 to 15 seconds. And what do you know? Someone from DarkZero, it seems like, slipped up or got forced out of position. They find the pick they need. Now they have it at a 4v1, and they can full commit. So really, really great play coming out from TSM right now.
Oh, we're going to have an early timeout from DarkZero, and that definitely should have happened. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Especially because obviously it's a best of 5, right? So there's a long time for DarkZero to try and get this figured out. And if anything, this is something that you want to happen inside of a best of 5. This is where you're truly going to get tested. This is where DarkZero can throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. TSM are playing lights out today, and I expect DarkZero to try and bring this back and, put TSM into a bad position. But we'll have to see how that goes after this timeout. They've assessed things, they've talked to BC, and now they've went back downstairs to Armory.
Let's take a look and see how the reattempt down here in the throne room is going to work out for DarkZero. This will be the third attempt on this site now in the half. Keep in mind, of course, DarkZero only have this round and the next to make an impact on the defensive up before they have to jump on the attack, which is traditionally deemed as a little bit more of a difficult side from time to time on this map. Obviously, TSM is looking to change that here today. They've already started to line up the same bits of aggression that they used on the previous 2 throne room attacks as well. With Geo and Merc working their way in from the cafe, or as well the lab side, depending on where they want to entry from, and 2 additional players trying to push their way in from Dragon.
Well, DarkZero still committed to this roam, at least with Mint upstairs defending that vertical play, as well as Hyper, Hot, and Cold, and actually the entirety of the remaining squad for DarkZero, all on a roam game. Couple jumping back into sight now, but still pay attention to how Hyper plays this drug lab area. This is actually a lot more important than what meets the eye initially. Hyper is able to delay a lot of time in this position, has a possibility to rotate back in if TSM doesn't handle things properly, but from what we've been seeing, I highly doubt that's the case. This is more than likely going to get checked out here in just a little while. TSM has been executing on load time, dedicating most of this to roam clear and getting these lead-off picks.
It does seem like the TSM is definitely aware of Hyper's position because they were very cognizant of it. I know, like, a Merc specifically rotated from Cafe down to the window in storage to check for him at one point. So they have to have had a drone ping or something to indicate that he was already there. It's just whether they know he's rotated or potentially still in there. That's the part that's still up in the air. And obviously they're going to get confirmation on that now because they just rolled the drone right past Hyper. So they know he's moved slightly to the inside of the bathrooms next to storage here. But what they don't know is that as well, there could be some additional support on the way, but the pinch is still alive and well here for TSM, trying to crunch this player out. The problem, though, is that until they do that, TSM are kind of stuck with their current position. And once again, you can see here, they've got very passive lineups. They're trying to set up the kill box against the player on the inside of Lab. But at the time being, the player isn't taking the bait on either angle, and Hyper is just continuing to sit in the same position, baiting down all this time.
Oh, Houghton in one of those electric claws off. Merc finds Hyper inside of Drug Lab, and now Bolo's going to clear as well. They see the entire area has been handled, so now it's down to the execute once again. And look at that, folks. 30 seconds left for TSM to make it happen. That's what we're going to figure out just next. Still have some utility to try and clear, but that's going to be Merc's job as he uses his very first breaching round of the round. Oh, M590 shot takes him down, though. He saw the laser, thought he had a freebie, but that shotgun is never too free inside of those close-range engagements. And now with very minimal time, this is where TSM's going to be into a lot of trouble. They have to try and funnel in through, but they actually end up winning it out. DarkZero finally fighting back, and they're going to win their very first defensive round after a very strong defense inside of Armory.
DarkZero finally catching on to the plot, and it's really just to try and move as little as possible from the inside of these sites here. Continue to hold the angles, and more importantly, keep people on the choke point so that if they do find that entry or two, it can be quickly traded out. Good adjustment from DZ. Now it's time to see if they can get that second round together, because they obviously can't repeat the same site. finally got one under their belt here, so going to have to adjust over towards Lab to try and get that second round before the half comes to a close here.
Well, with Lab up next, we'll have to see if DarkZero can handle things in similar fashion at what they just did on Armory. As you were talking about, their adjustment was to slow things down and not try and play as aggressive across the map as they were prior. The only roamer that they had that actually stayed out on roam that entire time was Hyper, and Hyper didn't do all too much, and to the untrained eye, a lot of you more than likely said, well, Hyper died. He really didn't do, really anything. He just sat inside of a bathroom, he saw a drone, he shot the drone, and that was really it. Well, the most important thing that Hyper did there was the delay of time. What DarkZero had previously was, multiple people on roam. They'd have someone upstairs try and rotate back down, maybe Hyper over near the tellers area or Gong on that side of the map to try and possibly pick up another player from TSM that could be handling another aspect of the map. But TSM doesn't do that. They clear areas on, a room by room basis with the entire team or entire sections, right? So in order to delay the same amount of time, DarkZero just kept Hyper on the roam and just told him not to peek things. He just needs to stay there, stay alive, and waste time. Just be a nuisance. Be that thorn in the side that they know if they ignore you, it's Hyper and he's going to get some kills. So what does TSM do? Well, they can't ignore Hyper, so they have to pinch him out, get the intel. Merc finally gets the pick, but there's not enough time for them to try and force their way into sight. DarkZero plays the swings extremely well, plays those angles tight with the shotguns, and locks TSM out.
Hyper's going to take some initial damage at the beginning of round number 6 here, as he'll be caught, I believe, on the spray from Bolo coming in from one of those 2 break room windows. No one else going to get hit by that, so just a small turn of events here. It's really just a bullet or 2 that he won't be able to take in the next fight, which is unfortunate, but not going to change the state of the game all that much at this point in time. Hyper will now move himself over here to the arcade stairs. We'll probably be able to maintain that position for a little bit more time here. For TSM, curious to see if there's going to be any adjustments to the overarching strategy, given that DarkZero have figured out a way to, at a minimum, slow down the pacing to a pretty massive degree here from TSM. It does look like TSM still bringing a lot of the same type of flair here. They're looking to take small amounts of map control, deal with the roam game, and then explode out onto the site when the time should come very, very late into this round. They're pretty much getting close here to completing the top clear now. Few players still causing problems, though. You could see the player just on the top side of yellow there, for instance. There may be one more still roaming on this floor, too. Nope, just going to be Hyper and Eclipse working together around the arcade area. And there we go. They're actually going to be able to pinch out Merc here. He goes down. Eclipse will finish off in just a second. There is a trade from Geo to take down Skies in a separate fight. Another fight's going to occur as well. This one goes into the favor of Achieve, but Mint quickly trades that back from the inside of one of the upstairs sites. We're back down to a 3v3.
Well, the previous round, we had a lot of slow and steady gameplay by DarkZero, but this time they've doubled down on the aggression. Plenty of roamers upstairs, plenty of crossfires. Merc existing in an area of the map that was not necessarily safe, surrounded by the enemy, especially around the yellow stairs area, but at least able to get the refrag and eventually equalize here for both squads. Down in the last minute now, though, for both of these teams. 3 versus 3, and still plenty of utility at their disposal to try and clear some areas out, get some of this verticality working into the offensive favor. That's exactly what they're going to start working on. Breaching charges for Bolo, Geo assisting on these vertical angles, trying to find anything at all to get one of these leadoff picks that they desperately need to try and work their way into sight. You don't want to try and make this a 3 versus 3. Anything less for DarkZero is a positive route for TSM.
Quick little flash check to the inside of the storage window there. Not going to do much besides act as sound distraction, and now push comes to shove here for TSM. They need to force their way in. Hyper picks up the initial defense. Another one's going to be found as well here with Mint chiming in. Last player is going to be Chala, and it won't stay that way for a really long time. Hot and cold shuts down the round for DarkZero, with the last player from TSM going down. And finally, a second round going up on the board for DZ as well. Quick turnaround for them after they figured things out, but is it going to be enough for them to come back on the attacking side? That's the question now.
Nice adjustments here from DarkZero. Apparently the conversation with the coach was desperately needed because he looked very strong in those last 2 rounds as opposed to the previous 4. We're switching sides now, folks. We've reached the halftime point of our very first map, and what an explosive half it was. But now TSM is on the defense, and we'll see if that explosive offense that they had, or low time executes that they had, and the cohesion that they had doing all of that, works out well for them on defense. Already having a 6 pick once again. leading us off here on the second half from TSM. This time, Echo is going away. We're bringing back out the Bandit, but that's more than likely needed for this exact site. They're not going to be running the Kaid like DarkZero did. Honestly, preferred the Electro Claws just a little bit, simply because of what they were able to do with the hatch inside of Split.
Yeah, they were able to successfully counter out X-Kairos on at least 2 separate occasions with those Electro Claws, so a little bit of a difference in preference there. I'd be curious to see if TSM will end up shifting towards that should the need rise. Obviously, still going to see the reinforcements go down on that hatch. Just not going to be able to see it charges. They'll have to be much more focused on the actual walls coming in from Geo here with those 4 extra batteries that he has, trying to block out areas like the tool closet here, as we can see, as well as areas like going into barrels there will be his primary focus with the utility, at least at the start here. Because remember, and it can still pick those up and move them, and there's potentially going to be quite a need for that if there's going to be additional pressure coming in from a yellow, should that be the attacking strategy to start things out here from DarkZero's. We've got quite a few players working their way in from Dragon's side, though, so this could be a lot hitting Geo's side of the map very quickly if he's not careful.
I love the little tiny stylistic differences between these teams that you can see on either side. I mean, for DarkZero, they don't want the Habana. Rather, they'd bring the Thermite instead on hot and cold. And they're also going to get the leadoff pick as well. Apparently, the offense is just prospering today on Theme Park as TSM already down 1 member, a very important one as well, Geo. So all those bandit batteries that he had in his pocket, if he had any at all, are now stuck, and everything else is stuck to a wall where they lie.
And if I remember seeing that correctly, I believe that death had... Oh, man, a weird turn of events there. Merc having the Nitro Cell get dropped down off the ground. He was hoping to probably catch a kill from that one, but a little bit too late, unfortunately, in order to fish that out. But either way, the death of Geo there, I believe partially his own fault due to missing a drone that had been placed down by Hot and Cold. I don't know if he ended up dying in the same position that was in, but it definitely gave DarkZero the heads up that he was roaming around that back halls area just as they start to push in towards Gong or any other area down on the first floor in that part of the map. By the way, down to a 4v5, a little over half the round to go. DarkZero already has the advantage, so they're not really feeling stressed for time, I would imagine, at this point here. Also, just locating Achieve, they're going to be unable to pick him immediately, but Skies does have this player on lock and has relatively forced him down the stairs. 2 more kills going to come off camera for us as well there. Mint finishing off Merc, Bolo falling a second later. That's 2 of the most powerful players on this roster. Slowly but surely, they are able to pinch out Achieve from his position on yellow stairs too. A good response from Chala, but it's a little shallow now, considering there's still 4 other players up and running at this point.
Well, we'll see how Chala tries to work this. He already got his pick, but obviously, as you said, still a long road ahead of him, and he's looking to try and isolate as many one-on-ones as he can possibly get. That's why he's not playing too safe. He needs to continue to swing these angles and try and get these frags, because if DarkZero is allowed to execute, it's already over before it even began. 2 stacked over towards yellow, still playing inside of Split. TSM, or excuse me, DarkZero, having some inkling of where he is playing. Eclipse with a very nice shot from downrange takes out Chala. DarkZero with round 7 in their first offensive round here on this half. Great stuff, amazing execute, and both of these teams with an amazing roam clear on these offenses.
A definitive statement being made by DarkZero here by closing out the first round of the second half in such one-sided fashion there, considering how far behind it seemed that they were in this matchup up until just about 3 rounds ago, when they finally figured out this very, very potent strategy from TSM that had been working for the initial 4 rounds. Ever since then, it's really been a DZ game, at least judging from this first round here on the second half. So we'll have to see how TSM will look to adjust their own strategies. Unfortunately, their roam clear got torn apart, as you were just mentioning, Stokes, very, very quickly throughout the course of that round, leaving plenty of time for a safe execute in DarkZero's camp.
This is just extremely interesting from both of these squads. I feel like this is going to be a streaky day that we have here, John, just because both of these teams are so, well planned, well thought out, and well executed overall, that it's going to continue to be the mind game rather than the matter game. And right now, that's what we're seeing. It's up to TSM to make the adjustment and try and link together some defensive rounds. It really seems like both of these teams have put in a lot of work on this map to make sure that these roam clears and how they handle their map control is well thought out, and that there's no real attempt from the defense to try and get back into the round once they're starting to bide for that map control. They lock down these staircases. We haven't seen a single flank happen from either team yet on these defenses so far. This is just very, very well done. So DarkZero hopefully tying things up here for their sake. to try and continue to force TSM into a bad position. But Chala now with the secondary shotgun. I was actually not aware that Frost got this in her kit. That's actually Mira's secondary shotgun. She also has the Super 90 as a primary, but most people use her SMG, which is one of the most unique looking SMGs in the game. It's kind of like an extended version of the cock gun that we have on Caveira. So we'll have to see exactly what he's bringing that for reasons wise. Not too many windows for them to hop in upstairs, but if somebody hops into a Frost mat, it'll be, you know, at least a good chuckle. But if you guys didn't know, this actually isn't a full-on, you know, int or anything like that. Frost is actually most effective against silvers as well as diamond/champion players. That's her two most effective, you know, planes of existence.
Got a weird bell curve. It's not even really a bell at that point anymore. It's just a weird shape. But
it's just a very strange cup.
yeah, it's just some wax going on with that one. But either way, we have started to see it pop up every now and again as of the past few months here. It's actually starting to become more and more of an occurrence the more I kind of check out these games here. So maybe start to see it happening slightly more in these kind of niche scenarios where she can be quite useful for blocking off specific angles. As we've just seen there too, the secondary shotgun not going to be a bad thing either, especially if you're trying to set up top-down angles like the current situation that Chala is in. First bit of damage going to go pretty heavily onto Mint, however, as he will take the first strike for the team, but unfortunately won't come out with a whole lot to show for it. Push to the inside of Cafe, yes, but at sub 50 now. Trying to make an entry. That's going to be dangerous. Got to look for the headshot here and needs to hit it too. Otherwise, could end up very quickly on the losing end of that battle. Hyper's fallen back in the meantime here. They do have a slight pinch against Chala. Back over on the arcade stairs. Drone's going to confirm that because they still have the pressure from Cafe too. Now, going to see an air jab go out. It's quickly countered by Chala, so we're going to try and spam these in, but without any additional pressure from up on top, there's nothing really to force Chala to obey these air jabs, so he's just going to continue to shoot those time after time again. 45 seconds left. Still no deaths as of yet, but there we go. Achieved is finally going to pick one up here. Chala gets one from the staircase. Make it two, as he's going to knock out Mint as well. Down to Eclipse and hot and cold. The false start to put pressure onto the arcade stairs has really hurt the potency of DarkZero's take here. And just like that, they're down to Eclipse, who only has positioning in break room. Yes, he can attack the back of the site directly, but first of all, he doesn't even have the diffuser. And second of all, he's dead because it's a flawless round from TSM as they take number 8.
See, folks, it really doesn't matter what gun you have in Rainbow Six Siege as long as you can shoot straight. And that's exactly what Chala just did right there. Some great work on the arcade stairs. Very questionable stuff from DarkZero, especially with the air jab spam going on in there. It seemed like that wasn't really translated to the rest of the squad. The only thing that I can think about with that air jab spam is that they were trying to distract Chala into a decision-making process, right? Either I shoot the air jab and the guy swings me, or I, you know, shoot the guy and the air jab knocks me on the ground. But there was no guy to back up the air jab. So he just shot both air jabs and then played the staircase and then killed 3 of your teammates. So, you know, that's the most questionable thing inside of that round. And that's more than likely the reason that round went so poorly, is that DarkZero desperately needed that staircase. You guys saw them trying to apply pressure from upstairs. They put Hyper downstairs. They insert him in through the drug lab area, use his breaching rounds to clear the deployable shield, and then try and get some pressure down low with him in Eclipse. But it just never worked out. And there truly never seemed to be an engagement on that landing from the bottom of the staircase that happened anyways. That most of his kills came from upstairs. So again, just a very weird circumstance there for DarkZero.
Bit of a, like I said, a bit of a kind of failure to start for them, as they had seemingly such heavy focus on clearing out that position, only to kind of fumble it a bit when it actually came to do the clearing itself. So hopefully just a momentary issue there for DarkZero, and they can quickly patch that up as we get into round number 9, but they've got to be careful. TSM still maintains the lead and is growing it once again here, as they've gone back up to 5-3 with the teams trading 1-1 at the beginning of the map here. DarkZero going to send a lot of their players over towards Cafe's side yet again, so you can expect quite a bit of pressure to work itself in from this side of the map early on in the round here.
Okay, well, Roman clear as we've grown accustomed to so far out this series. No truly early engagements usually happening post 2 minutes, but so far so good for both of these teams. I've been enjoying the adjustments that we've seen, and definitely have some new things entail here as well. It appears that Geo is going to slap down a mirror window on one of the initiation double walls towards can't exactly actually remember what this room is called. We have the kitchen area and then this room that he's attached to here. But nevertheless, it's still a strange setup simply because he has that secondary reinforcement to the side, so you can't play that. It's simply information as to what's going on inside of that room. I think possibly pop the mirror window later on. But early pickup here. Hyper not having the best day right now. 2, 2, and 8 as Merc takes him down. And there's going to be a follow-up as well from DarkZero, or excuse me, from TSM to take down Mint.
Legion's been a little switch shot god in this game. It's been crazy, some of the shots we've been seeing, specifically from the Legion 1.5 site there on the T5. And they haven't been slowing down, as the first kill of this round was a direct result of it there on the arcade balcony. Great shot from Merc, and to be able to pick that up, and it's helped to bring things down to a 5v3. DarkZero, once again, unfortunately, working from the back foot to try and get themselves into this round. This guy's just a momentary issue there. If you're wondering why he took damage, it was because he was too close to that charged wall on the other side. So bleeding a little bit of HP from that, but quickly can get back on that and achieve a great position inside of the throne room, just below the hatch. Is going to cut off one of the players trying to rotate into a more aggressive spot. Still all 5 alive here from TSM, and yes, there's a minute remaining, which in Siege terms is a lot of time. It doesn't seem like it if you're watching us from another game, but trust us, it is. Unfortunately, in the 2v5, it's still going to be incredibly tough to work their way out, although they may be given a gift here. Hot and cold, some foot shots going out. Skies is going to be able to capitalize on that, get the finishing shot on the Geo at a minimum, and bring this down into a 4v2.
Well, at least stopping the flawless round from TSM. Still have quite a laundry list of things to do. Stun grenades in now. Try to force it, but achieved. Oh my god. All over him. TSM almost with a flawless round once again. That's a 3K for achieved on that round. And I mean, can we just see the scoreboard for a second, Cyano? I mean, look at this thing, folks. Look at the difference between the two rosters right now. TSM, so very consistent across this board. And I mean, John, it's been the playmaking ability of this team as well. We've been seeing, you know, disjointed gunfights happen across the entire map where, you know, you think theme park with the name is supposed to be fun, but you enter the building and all of a sudden a bunch of people are shooting at you and you can't possibly get a refrag. They seem to be everywhere. They're in the trees. It's truly impressive what TSM are achieving right now.
Some really powerful stuff, and it's only the beginning of this series, folks. We've got a long way to go here, but TSM is certainly giving us a definitive start, especially if they're going to take this all the way to a 7-3 victory on our initial map of this series. DarkZero, in the meanwhile, seemed like we were onto something with the beginning of this half going so promisingly for them, able to squeeze out the roam pressure from TSM and very quickly overwhelm any of the remaining players on the site. But since then, we haven't been able to see that follow through. Their initial attempts to take control, such as on the second round of this half, fell to pieces due to some weird utility use, as well as just overall the way that they were posturing their aggression. And that problem has continued to, obviously, to a bit of a lesser extent into round number 3 as well. So DarkZero needs to clean this up quickly. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at TSM with a 1-0 lead in the best of 5.
And, you know, not too many people liking the one map advantage, but we have to give it to them if they win it, you know what I mean? So that's just how it is. But TSM so far, very impressive today. I like what I'm seeing. DarkZero, they're showing signs of life, and that's what's important inside of a best of 5. You don't want them just being a slouch this entire map. They've been trying to make adjustments. They're attempting to work their way around TSM. It's just that TSM have been that much better so far throughout this map. So we'll have to see how this continues to translate throughout the rest of this series. But as of right now, it's TSM ahead by quite a bit of a distance. It's not unrecoverable by DarkZero, obviously. We're still inside of this, you know, first map. But it's definitely something to take into consideration.
All right, well, let's take a look here. Already about 30 seconds into the round. We are seeing a little bit of pressure from DarkZero on the break room repels, trying to work their way across the two sites on this side of the map here. More importantly, trying to isolate out Geo, seeing if they can take him down, but he's quickly going to deal with a drone presence that's still sitting on the inside of break there. Even maybe going to challenge the actual window, which obviously this is going to be a little bit riskier for him here, but if it works, it works. And oh, not going to work this time, but very, very close. Hot and Cold wins out that incredibly close opening duel. They'll just have a sliver of HP remaining after taking it, but indeed, Geo goes down, and that's a lot of map control suddenly opened up for DarkZero.
Big pickup here, but Geo's ADS is still going to reside inside of sight, and that doesn't mean that DarkZero is out of the thick of it just yet. Still have to deal with these TSM members downstairs as well. But DarkZero have top control, and that's extremely pivotal when you're going up against a lab defense. TSM can only really keep these members over inside of Throne for retake or to be able to assist their teammates in any sort of capacity. Seems as though a lot of this is leaning on Merc's success over towards the bottom of Arcade Stairs. He hasn't been found out just yet, but he could be at a moment's notice. Drone in finds him, as well as Jackal available for the offense, so Merc could run into some issues, but now he's already found Safe Harbor back inside of sight. Less than a minute now for DarkZero to work their way in. Lots of drones taken out. Actually, drone economy looking quite strong now that I'm actually taking in all of these players. This is looking very good for DZ going into this last minute.
It's more than anything been a lack of droning from DarkZero, and it's kind of been working out okay for them because of the fact that they're usually able to find positions anyway, even without the drones. But as you mentioned, they still have the option to bring them out here if they need to slow things down, but that just really hasn't been necessary. It's been working okay for them. Guys, a little bit of self-damage there, but that won't matter too much. What does matter is Chala picking up the big kill from the depths of storage here. Now getting smoked out. He's got to be cautious of the hop in, but that's not much of a problem. It's such a close range fight. Takes down Min. Skies has an exchange to work with here for DZ, but now they only have top level and yellow control. They don't have what's necessary to swing into the lab site anymore, and I believe they've lost the kit as well. Indeed, it's sitting down on the ground. They're going to have to retrieve the case. A 1-for-1 exchange. Skies keeps his team alive and now has to sell it forward. Otherwise, we're going to see map number 1 go into the hands of TSM, as this round's going to expire on the timer. Never mind, it'll expire on the kills, as TSM seal the deal definitively here on Theme Park and take the 1-0 lead in the US Division Finals.
Extremely impressive theme park here by TSM. Just some disjointed plays by DarkZero in the last 9 seconds there that did not